Have you ever stood beneath the night sky and wondered where you truly came from? Not just your body, your name, or your ancestry, but the part of you that watches, that dreams, that aches for something more. The part that does not age and does not forget. That quiet, ancient flame inside your chest. What is its origin? And why did it choose to awaken here, in this strange, beautiful, and often painful material world? According to Edgar Cayce, the origin of your soul is not bound by time or biology. It is not a product of Earth, nor of any single star, but something far older and more mysterious. You were born from the essence of the divine, not created as a blank slate, but as a living thread of God's own consciousness. Before you had a name or a face, you were light, a vibration in the sea of pure spirit. In the beginning, there was only unity, a great stillness, alive with infinite potential. In that field of oneness, there were no boundaries, no opposites, no form. And yet, within that stillness, arose a longing, not from lack, but from love. The Creator desired to express, to extend, to know itself through experience. And so, the souls came into being, not separate, but distinct, not fallen, but free. You were one of them, a soul born not in a moment, but in a movement, a current flowing from the heart of the divine. At first, you existed in what Cayce described as realms of pure energy, where thoughts shaped reality instantly, and love was not a word, but the very substance of being. There you did not speak or walk, you emanated. You were not bound by skin. You were light, fluid, and endless. But even within that beauty, the desire to explore began to bloom, to create, to individualize, to experience what it means to be an I within the great we. This desire was not a rebellion, but a sacred risk, the yearning of spirit to become more through contrast. And so, the soul's journey into matter began. It was not an instant descent, nor a punishment for pride. It was a slow unfolding, a layering of experience. As the soul moved further from source, it passed through dimensions of vibration, each more dense than the last. These were not places, but states of being, spiritual ecosystems where the soul learned through reflection, through harmony, and eventually, through friction. What we call the physical world is the furthest edge of that journey. A realm so rich in contrast, so layered in limitation, that the soul can taste sorrow and joy in the same breath. Here, in this world of beginnings and endings, the soul meets its mirror, and through that mirror, it remembers what it is. In this descent into matter, the soul did not fall, it chose. It chose out of curiosity, out of the sacred drive to create and experience. But choices, once made, create ripples, and the deeper the soul ventured, the more it engaged with the forces of polarity, duality, and form. What was once effortless communion with divine will now became a dance with desire, identity, and separation. Cayce explained that as the soul moved through spiritual dimensions, it gradually began to form vehicles of expression. These were not yet physical bodies, but subtle fields of energy that allowed it to interact with various planes of existence. These soul bodies were shaped by thought, by intention, by vibration. The soul was still luminous, still aware of its divine origin, but it was beginning to wear masks, not to hide, but to experience. Eventually, the soul entered denser realms, those that required embodiment, and thus began the long experimentation with form. In some of the earliest stages, Cayce said, souls inhabited what he described as thought forms, ethereal blueprints of shape and motion. But as the soul continued its journey toward Earth, it began to entangle with material forces. Light slowed, matter thickened, and the soul began to forget. Forgetfulness was not a flaw, it was part of the design. To fully experience being human, the soul had to immerse itself in limitation. Memory of the stars had to sleep, so that rediscovery would carry meaning. The body became not just a garment, but a tool, a divine vessel through which the soul could learn about choice, consequence, connection, and compassion. The early Earth, according to Cayce, was not as it is now. It vibrated with a higher frequency, and the beings that inhabited it were unlike modern humans. These early forms were fluid, luminous, semi-physical. The soul was still in dialogue with spirit, still half awake to its true nature. But with each cycle of incarnation, the veil thickened. Physicality grew more solid. The senses became dominant, and the soul, for a time, believed it was only the body. This belief is the great forgetting. Not a sin, but a sleep. A necessary amnesia that allows the drama of life to unfold. For what meaning would love have if we never felt loss? What beauty would union hold without separation? The soul chose this dream not to escape divinity, but to discover it in form, in flesh, in time. Yet, even in the deepest forgetfulness, there are traces, echoes, moments when something within you stirs at the sound of ancient music, or when your heart aches at the sight of stars. These are not accidents. They are reminders. The soul has not been lost. It is buried, like a candle beneath layers of wax. And life, with all its trials, is the slow burning that brings the flame back to light. According to Cayce, our journey through the material world did not begin in one lifetime or with one birth, but across vast epochs, as the soul reincarnated again and again, slowly adapting to the rhythms of earth. With each return, the soul carried both the weight of unlearned lessons and the quiet wisdom of past experience. Life became the classroom, karma the curriculum, and free will the sacred tool of progress. Cayce described how the soul chose the circumstances of its incarnations not by chance, but by inner necessity. The families we are born into, the challenges we face, the talents we seem to have from birth, all are part of a larger design shaped by previous lives. You did not just arrive into this life by accident. You, as soul, selected this moment, this body, this path, as the next chapter in your unfolding journey. He often said that Earth is not a prison, but a school, and like any school, it offers both difficulty and opportunity. Souls are not here to suffer endlessly, but to awaken, to remember their purpose, to refine their consciousness, and to bring light into the places where darkness still lingers. Pain, in this view, is not punishment. It is often a signal, pointing the way toward healing, growth, and spiritual maturity. One of Cayce's most powerful insights was that our past lives are not locked away in some unreachable vault. They are etched into the subconscious, alive in our dreams, our habits, our fears, and our deepest attractions. Sometimes we call them instincts. Sometimes déjà vu. But more often, they whisper to us through intuition, through the magnetic pull we feel towards certain places, periods, or people. A phobia with no cause, a language that comes easily, a longing that makes no rational sense. These are all clues, remnants of other lives still echoing through the present. In Cayce's trance readings, he would speak to individuals about who they had been in previous incarnations. A Roman centurion, a monk in Egypt, a healer in Atlantis. But these were not stories for entertainment. They were mirrors, designed to reveal patterns, tendencies, gifts, and debts the soul had carried across time. Knowing one's spiritual lineage, Cayce believed, could empower a person to change, not just outward behavior, but inner posture. For the origin of the soul is not merely about where we came from, but why we came at all. And the answer, again and again, is to grow. To love more deeply, to serve more selflessly, to align our lives with that divine thread that still runs quietly beneath all things. The material world is not the enemy of the soul, it is its proving ground. It is where spirit becomes action, where belief is tested and refined into knowing. And while it is easy to get lost in the noise of the world, the soul is never truly lost. It simply waits for you to remember what you have always been. The soul, once fully immersed in the material realm, did not forget its origins by accident. According to Cayce, this forgetting was a necessary veil, not a punishment, but a protective grace. Imagine trying to live one human life while holding the full memory of every joy and trauma, every love and betrayal, every success and fall across countless other lifetimes. The weight would be unbearable. The soul chose to forget, so it could truly focus on the present, to engage each moment with sincerity, as if it were the first. Yet forgetting is not the same as losing. Deep within, your soul remembers. Not in the language of words or names, but in the subtle energies that shape your instincts and choices. And as one begins to live more consciously, that remembrance stirs. Cayce spoke of this awakening as a slow but certain process, like the sunrise breaking through fog, revealing the landscape that was always there. He often emphasized the role of meditation, prayer, and quiet reflection in this reawakening. In silence, the noise of the world recedes, and the whispers of the soul become audible. They may not speak in thunder, but in a gentle knowing, the kind that doesn't need proof to feel true. Many people Cayce worked with began to sense this knowing when they were still, when they asked, not out of desperation, but out of sincere curiosity. Who am I really, beneath this name, this body, this story? And often the answer would not come immediately, nor in the way they expected. It might arrive in dreams, symbols, patterns repeating across years. It might come in the sudden peace that descends during a walk through nature, or in the recognition that blooms upon meeting someone for the first time, a sense of familiarity so deep it defies logic. This is not imagination, Cayce would say, but memory returning. Memory not from the brain, but from the soul. It is the beginning of a great homecoming, where you start to see yourself not just as a personality, but as an eternal traveler, one who has walked through empires and deserts, through love and loss, through light and shadow. But this journey is not solitary. Souls do not travel alone. According to Cayce, we reincarnate in soul groups, spiritual companions who appear again and again in different roles. A mother in one life may return as a child in the next, a rival as a teacher, a stranger as a soulmate. These recurring bonds are not coincidences, but the soul's intricate weaving of experience for mutual growth. When you feel that inexplicable connection to someone, a depth that feels too vast for one lifetime, it may be that your souls have danced before in other stories, under other names. And when you feel an unshakable resistance to someone else, it too may point to unresolved threads from the past, inviting healing. Cayce taught that healing these old soul threads is one of the central purposes of reincarnation. Each lifetime, he said, is an opportunity not only to grow in understanding, but to balance what remains unfinished, to mend the karmic imprints that shape the challenges of our current existence. But karma, as Cayce saw it, is not punishment. It is education, lovingly crafted by the soul in agreement with divine law. What appears as misfortune or hardship may actually be the soul's way of fearing itself the precise experience needed for evolution. A person born into poverty might, in another life, have misused great wealth. Not as a penalty, but to learn humility and compassion from the other side. A person betrayed by a loved one may, in another time, have been the betrayer. These reversals are not acts of vengeance, but of balance, the soul's deep desire to understand all sides of love, suffering, power, and mercy. But karma is not fixed. It is a living energy, shifting with every decision we make. Cayce insisted that every soul has the freedom in any moment to choose love over resentment, forgiveness over pride, truth over comfort. And with each of these small, powerful choices, the threads of karma begin to loosen. We begin to rewrite the patterns we once believed were destiny. He spoke often of grace, that divine force that flows in when a soul truly opens to transformation. Grace, he said, can transcend karma. It does not erase consequences, but it can change the soul's relationship to them. A moment of sincere remorse, a genuine act of service, a deep commitment to truth. These acts call down grace like rain on parched soil. And in that grace, old wounds can dissolve in a way no human logic can explain. This is the turning point in many spiritual lives, when a person begins to sense that their struggles have meaning, that their suffering is not in vain, and that they are not victims of fate, but co-authors of their journey. That realization is powerful. It births not just hope, but responsibility. You begin to live differently. You speak with more care, love with more presence, and look at others with gentler eyes, because you start to see that everyone around you is walking their own soul path, shaped by invisible histories you cannot fully know. Cayce encouraged people to treat life as a sacred school, where every moment, even the mundane, offers a lesson. He believed that the body too held memory, and that certain physical ailments or patterns could reflect unresolved spiritual issues. Not all illness, he said, was karmic, but much of it carried echoes of the past, asking for healing not just of tissue, but of soul. To truly heal, therefore, one must listen not only to doctors, but to the quiet voice within. Ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? What is it calling me to remember, to release, to forgive? Some people, Cayce said, come into this life with a sense of mission, a strange urgency they can't explain. They might not know what the mission is, only that they were meant for something more than routine existence. This deep inner tug, that mysterious ache for purpose, is often a sign that the soul is remembering, not in clear images or exact memories, but in the language of longing, the kind of longing that doesn't go away with success or comfort, a sacred unrest. Cayce described this as the soul's faint memory of its divine origin. Even though we've descended into the material world, we carry with us an echo of the celestial, a whisper that reminds us, however faintly, that we are not just humans having spiritual experiences, but spiritual being, as navigating human conditions. This subtle memory drives people to seek the sacred, to ask deeper questions, and to find their true work in the world. But how did we get here? According to Cayce, the soul's journey into the physical realm was not a fall from grace, but a voluntary descent, a choice made out of love to explore creation in its densest form. We did not come here to be punished, but to learn what love means in separation, what light looks like inside darkness. He said the soul existed long before the earth was formed, and that many of us chose to enter time and space again and again to gain wisdom that cannot be found in formless light. And yet, with each life, we forget. That forgetting is part of the design. Memory would overwhelm us, and karma would crush our ability to choose freely. But traces remain. In dreams, in visions, in the sense that a stranger feels familiar, or a place feels like home, even when you've never been there. These are not accidents. They are the soul's gentle way of reminding itself. You've been here before. One of the most powerful tools for uncovering these echoes is meditation. Cayce often urged people to meditate daily, not to escape life, but to remember their inner truth. In silence, he said, the soul hears the voice it knew before birth. It reconnects with its original blueprint, the pattern of harmony, love, and divine will that has guided it through every incarnation. In those quiet moments, we can begin to sense our deeper identity, not our job, our name, or our trauma, but the eternal witness within. The part of us that watched empires rise and fall, that walked through ancient temples and future cities, that has loved in countless forms and still hungers to love again. And perhaps most importantly, in that silence, we remember that we are not alone, that behind the veil of this world, there are guides, unseen helpers, and the higher self, what Cayce called the Christ consciousness, always whispering, always calling us home. As we come to understand, the soul's journey into this material world is both profound and purposeful. It is a path chosen not in haste or by accident, but in a deliberate act of love and courage, a willingness to experience life in its fullest, most tangible form. The soul, a spark of divine light, steps willingly into the dance of matter and form, not to be lost, but to be found anew through the trials and triumphs of incarnation. This descent into the physical realm is, in essence, a great act of creation, a sacred experiment where spirit and matter intertwine, and where the soul learns not only who it is, but what it can become. The forgetfulness that veils us is not a curse, but a blessing. It allows each life to unfold with freshness and sincerity, free from the burden of overwhelming memory. It is through this forgetting and subsequent remembering that the soul grows, evolves, and ultimately awakens. Edgar Cayce's readings invite us to view life not as a random series of events, but as chapters in a grander story, one that spans lifetimes and dimensions. Each challenge faced, each relationship formed, each moment of joy or sorrow is a thread woven into the fabric of our spiritual education. The karma we carry is not a punishment, but a guidepost, a compassionate teacher that leads us toward balance and healing. And healing, Cayce reminds us, is possible at every stage. Through grace, through sincere intention, and through acts of love and forgiveness, we begin to loosen the binds of past patterns. We awaken to the truth that while the soul may have entered the material world veiled in forgetfulness, it never truly loses its divine origin. Instead, that origin quietly pulses beneath the surface of our daily lives, waiting for us to listen. Meditation, prayer, and reflection become bridges to that inner knowing. In the silence between thoughts, the soul speaks softly, reminding us of who we truly are, eternal travelers, luminous beings walking a temporary path. When we open ourselves to these whispers, the mysterious ache for purpose and belonging begins to soften, replaced by a deeper trust in the journey. Remember, the connections you feel, whether to people, places, or moments, may be echoes of soul groups who have walked beside you through time. These relationships, sometimes challenging, often transformative, are opportunities for mutual growth and healing. You are never truly alone. The soul's origin story is not just an ancient mystery, it is a living invitation. An invitation to awaken to the light within, to embrace the sacred lessons of this world, and to step confidently into your role as a co-creator of your destiny. You came here with a purpose, and that purpose is waiting to be remembered. If this exploration into Edgar Cayce's vision of the soul's origin has stirred something within you, I encourage you to take a moment today to pause and listen inwardly. Begin or deepen your practice of stillness, allowing space for the soul's quiet voice to emerge. And as you walk your path, carry with you the knowledge that your journey, every twist and turn, is a sacred dance, a return to the divine light that has always been and will always be your true home. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery. If you found this video meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who seek the deeper truths of our existence. Together, we can awaken more souls to the magnificent origin and destiny that lies within us all.